And we welcome all of you back here on this Monday afternoon. Great chance to say hello again to our friend Coach Brian Kelly. 42-10 win over South Alabama. A bye week, and then it gets real with Ole Miss coming to town, as well as a number of other games. Coach, you've seen some great competition so far this year. When you play a team like South Alabama, which has been quite impressive at times over these past couple of years, what do you learn after a game like this?
Well, they challenge you in terms of their scheme. I think Major Applewhite's done a really good job of taking this program, which is a new program, and elevating it both from an offensive standpoint and certainly from a personnel standpoint. And look, for us, the opponent was ourselves, right? We needed to continue to grow as a football team from the opening week, and another challenge for us to put together a complete game. And I thought that this was probably, regardless of who the opponent was, much more of a complete game for us from start to finish. And we opened fast. We started with a play that resulted in a touchdown right out of the gates. And I think we created the kind of clean play, if you will, for 4 quarters that we were looking for.
Coach, oftentimes we see clips from a game, highlights, and that's what everybody obsesses over. And the one from your game was between you and your quarterback, Garrett Nme, who later said he was appreciative of what happened. We're watching the play here. It obviously an interception. Nobody's happy with that, even at the time with a 25-point lead. And you looked like you were pretty unhappy.
Oh, yeah. We've got a great relationship, and I'm reminding him about the things that we talk about every single day. And, I come across, on a blip of 4 or 5 seconds of, hollering at somebody, but you don't see the hours and hours and hours where I've got my arm around him, and we're talking about him, in terms of the great things that he does. And that's just TV, and you take it for what it's worth. But no, we've got a great relationship, and he's being reminded there of the things that he should do and how he should do it, and he recognizes that, and he still had an incredible game. 400 yards. I think the graphic there in front of us, 2 touchdowns rushing, and there's only a few that have done that in the history of LSU. So again, a brief 3 or 4 second clip there. Doesn't give you the story of the kind of play that Garrett's had here this season.
And he said that he was thankful for it, which prompts me to ask you this question, because a lot of us, we watch coaches like you and we see those moments. But in that moment, how important is it to make the point right away to your young players so they don't so they can learn from it?
Well, it's important. I think the first thing, Paul, is you got to have a really good relationship with those guys, or you can't make the point that way, because they'll take it the wrong way. They'll collapse, in those kinds of situations. So there's some guys that I can't talk to that way. I can't get at them. And with Garrett, you can really get after him, because that's the way he'll remember it. And so each guy's different. You can't coach all the guys the same way. And Garrett is a guy with thick skin, and you really can coach him. You can't coach him that way the whole game, right? You got to be able to pat him on the back, and you've got to be able to put your arm around him and talk to him about the great plays. And 95% of them are about coaching them, with an arm around them and patting him on the back and giving him great confidence. But there's going to be those occasions, like you saw in those couple of seconds, that, you're going to remind them, listen, we've gone over this before. You can't do those kinds of things. And he'll remember them, and he'll be better because of it.
Yeah, speaking of that, when we talked to you last week, your former quarterback was about to play on Monday night, and since then he's won 2 games. I don't want to digress, but I would like just to get some thoughts from your view of what Jaden's been doing so far.
Remarkable. To go into the NFL and to play at the level that he's playing requires, first of all, the preparation. It requires a confidence. and a system that really fits him. And I think all three of those things are coming together. When Jaden was here, there were a couple of moments that we just saw with Garrett that I had with Jaden. There were not a lot of them, but there were some times where he needed to be firmly reminded about the things that he needed to do correctly. And again, I think when we talk about the development of a quarterback, it's making sure that you have a great relationship with them. So when you do need to lean on them, it resonates. And Jaden now is in a situation where all those things are coming together. Great preparation. He now has the mindset that he can go in and the confidence within a system. Cliff Kingsbury's doing an incredible job of putting him in a position to succeed. And the rest now is you've got a young man that is very, very confident in what he's doing.
Coach, I think last year at this point I asked you about the bye week. I believe you were going to see your son. Bye weeks come at different times for different people. What about this week?
Well, this week we're treated a little bit different because we have two, Paul. We're going to continue to practice, continue to develop our team. This is a young team. We had 6 freshmen on the defensive side of the ball. As you saw, Caden Durham had a great game for us. He's a true freshman. We've got a couple of freshmen on the offensive side of the ball that need to continue to develop. So, we'll practice this week, and then we've got a big recruiting weekend. So a lot of visits coming this weekend. So a combination of keep developing our football team. And then the second bye week we'll use as much more of a recovery week because, as you know, after this week, we go 7 SEC games in a row, and that's when you'll need some of the recovery.
And as you think during this bye week, I know you're still trying to work with your team. It's a critical moment in time, but internally with you and your staff, where are you? Do you start looking ahead a little bit? I mean, you have to look ahead, but what kind of work do you get done during a week like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think now we're at that level of making sure we have the right personnel in place. I think we've seen enough now, going into week 6 where we're clear on who we want on the field. Now it's working on some of the deeper level things, some of the technical areas that we want to get better at in terms of, some of our run game, some of the technical areas that we want to be better at in terms of pass rush lanes. How we want to click off working inside out on, some of the mesh routes and things like that. So a lot more technical work this week that we'll spend on that will allow us to get better as we get into SEC play.
Coach, thanks for your time as always. Enjoy the off week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Coach Kelly joining us from Baton Rouge here on this Monday. We'll take a short break and back with your phone calls.